In 2024, a question that no one had anticipated started circulating around Tom Selleck. Is he no longer there? One of Hollywood's most beloved faces sparked overnight dread around the world as death rumors raced over social media. However, a more disturbing development occurred after the rumors were disproven. After 14 years of carrying blue bloods, Tom Selleck eventually came clean about his dread of losing the 63-acre ranch he had lived his life safeguarding in the event that the show ended. The USA's hero, whom they had believed to be unmovable for decades, now sounded terrified. Despite losing Indiana Jones and leaving James Bond, this man went on to become one of the last genuine legends of television. There was a life of sacrifice, disappointment, and hidden struggles beneath the rough self-assurance and placid voice. What then happens when the symbol of power ages in public view? What secret has Tom Selleck been keeping from everyone for so long? Please remain until the very end and say a prayer for Tom Selleck, a man who inspired faith in heroes for many generations of people, if he was ever a part of your childhood. Tom Selleck was born Thomas William Selleck in Detroit, Michigan on January 29, 1945, when the United States was still adjusting to the latter stages of World War II and the changes that would ensue in the years after the war. Robert Dean Selleck, an extremely methodical real estate businessman and entrepreneur, and Martha Jagger, a kind but very practical housewife, welcomed their second child into the world at that same moment. Tom, Robert, Martha, and Daniel were all members of a strict, ambitious, and traditionally American family that inculcated discipline and ideals in their offspring. Their lineage went back hundreds of years. Tom is 11th in a line of Selecks born in North America. His family tree begins with English settler David Selleck, who came to Massachusetts from Somerset, England in 1633, by his father's side of the family tree. Tom and his family departed Detroit for Sherman Oaks, California, a suburb of Los Angeles that had grown rapidly after the war, when he was 3 years old. Numerous families, eager for better prospects following the war, flocked to California in the late 1940s, when the state was undergoing fast suburban and economic expansion. The Selleck family, on the other hand, held responsibility and discipline in the highest regard. In contrast to Robert Selleck's belief that honesty and hard effort were the only ways to succeed, Martha managed to strike a balance between being friendly and quietly expecting responsibility and discipline. Success was rewarded. Justifications failed. Tom was already physically noticeable when he arrived at Grant High School in the San Fernando Valley. His athleticism and towering stature, 6 feet 4 inches, garnered a lot of attention. He was a baseball and basketball star, exhibiting a fierce desire to win. It all started with basketball, his dream sport. He had big dreams of becoming a professional athlete. He was recruited by the USC Trojans, a basketball team at USC, thanks to his talent and a scholarship. He was a part of the Trojan Knights and the Sigma Chi fraternity in addition to being a baseball player, both as a pitcher and hitter. It seemed like sports and business were going to be his future. He had the self-assurance of someone with a direction in mind, having studied business management at the university level. He had a turning moment in his life at college. The intense rivalry at USC revealed a new reality to Dot while playing for the Trojans basketball team. Tom Selleck managed to score a meager 4 points in 7 games. As time went on, his dreams of making it as a professional basketball player faded. His focus shifted to exploring alternative employment paths. That instruction came as a complete surprise. His natural charisma and command of the stage led a theater instructor to recommend that he give acting a go. The proposal appeared implausible first. Tom Selleck was more of a sportsman than a performer. Acting, though, piqued his curiosity, and he dove headfirst into training, finding a discipline that required the same intensity as athletics. As he honed his subtle acting chops, he started to draw more notice during screen tests and auditions. Regardless, fierce competition persisted in the entertainment business. In his final year at USC, Selleck decided he had had enough of the academic grind and started accepting any job he could get, including modeling, commercials, guest spots on TV, and small acting parts. Despite his consistent attendance at auditions and appearances in episodic television throughout the early 1970s, he failed to secure a significant breakthrough part. Still, he honed the tenacity and self-control that would define his career over those years. Tom Selleck did something else throughout those challenging years that would define his character. Before he became famous, he proudly served in the California Army National Guard, away from the limelight and Hollywood dreams. For a long time in the late 1960s and early 1970s, Tom Selleck's career was in limbo. The years of trying out for roles and working odd jobs built up experience in the entertainment world, where a steady paycheck and a can-do attitude were more valued than flashy debuts.
At the Beverly Hills Playhouse, Tom trained under Milton Katselas, an accomplished actor, using the same methodical approach he had used in his athletic career. He did not identify with the generation of young actors that were obsessed with the spotlight on Hollywood. He approached acting more like a craft, one that needed dedication, perseverance, and practice. While the sun was shining, he sought out any job he could get his hands on. Ads promoting Pepsi, cologne, deodorants, and cigarettes. As long as it paid enough to motivate him to keep going, anything would do. He also made an appearance as a contestant on The Dating Game in 1965 and again in 1967, years before he would build the iconic screen persona that fans would later connect with him. It was around the same time when Selleck got his draft notification. From 1967 to 1973, he was a member of the 160th Infantry Regiment in the California National Guard. Although these years don't get much attention in Hollywood retrospectives, his colleagues later compared his demeanor to military professionalism, firmness, and discipline. The time he spent serving his country became an integral aspect of the public's perception of his character and work ethic. Acting progressed at a leisurely pace. During the 60s and 70s, Selleck was a regular in low-budget features, TV pilots, guest spots, and short films. Actor Myra Breenidge and the film The 7 Minutes were among his film credits. Due to casting directors starting to discover his charisma and subtle approach, Mae West personally sought him out for roles. Despite not yet being a big star, Selleck became well known to audiences during the 1970s. He made cameo appearances in ads for Chaz Cologne by Revlon and Salem Cigarettes. Before Farrah Fawcett or him were renowned, they appeared in a Right Guard advertisement together in 1971.
He was one of many young performers who took low-budget roles in cult horror flick Daughters of Satan, 1972. In his frequent parts on television, such as Private Investigator Lance White on the Rockford Files, producers began to recognize the composed authority he exuded. However, chances for significant advancement were still few. Tom Selleck had the tough gig of being well known in the business but lacking a breakout part for a long time. Accidents occurred due to pilots' flaws. Programs vanished. Not all endeavors were successful in the long run. 6 of his television pilots from the 1970s had bombed at the box office. He had 6 separate opportunities to obtain prominent television parts, but none of them materialized. Success did not come easily to Selleck, but he persisted in his endeavors, and continued to create a career. He enjoyed spending time outside when he wasn't in front of the camera. A lifelong passion for the outdoors and Western ways of living informed many of his acting parts. He hunted, collected guns, and spent time among horses and open space. He was at his most charismatic in Westerns, which was a perfect fit for his acting style. He co-starred in 1979's The Sacketts as cowboy Orrin Sackett with Western film and TV heavyweights Sam Elliott, Glenn Ford, and Ben Johnson. Concrete Cowboys, starring Jerry Reed, was released that same year. Subsequent projects included Quigley Down Under and Last Stand at Sabre River. Acting roles in Western-themed productions that boosted his star power. Then the chance that altered the course of events arrived. After a string of smaller parts and unsuccessful pilot roles, Selleck finally landed the role of Thomas Magnum in 1980's Magnum P1. Nobody saw this series coming. Now it's widely considered a classic of the aughts television era. Selleck rarely, if ever, portrayed the part. Producers had him sign a non-compete clause that barred him from working on any other projects, even Raiders of the Lost Arkansas. For a brief moment, Selleck was linked to what would turn out to be one of the most successful film franchises in Hollywood history when Spielberg and Lucas pondered casting him as Indiana Jones. Nonetheless, he stuck with Magnum PY in the end as he wanted to keep his broadcast deal. Selleck opted not to leave the series even though production delays presented an opportunity for him to film Raiders. After some time had passed, he offered an explanation for his decision, stating simply, "I had to look my parents in the eye, and we didn't do that." This led to Harrison Ford being cast as Indiana Jones, which became one of the most talked about casting stories in Hollywood history. Tom Selleck's career took a very different turn when he passed up that chance. Beyond just making him famous, Magnum PI accomplished a great deal. Because of it, he became one of the 1980s most famous TV stars. Viewers immediately identified with Thomas Magnum, a former Navy SEAL turned private detective, the moment they watched him tread onto Hawaiian beaches. It didn't take long for people to associate Selleck with his trademark mustache, self-assurance, Ferrari, and easygoing charm. Above all else, Magnum exemplified a trend in leading character television that was highly popular at the time. They exuded an air of confidence without coming across as conceited, a sense of capability without being unbeatable, and a seductive charm that was genuine rather than contrived. Tom Selleck was ultimately recognized as a major television actor after years of smaller appearances, failed pilots, and unclear possibilities thanks to Magnum PY. Tom Selleck graduated from the status of just another working actor in Hollywood by the early 1980s. In the United States, he had become into a household name. Many in the business were surprised by how quickly Magnum PI became a cultural phenomenon. And famous mustache emerged. Quickly going down television history lane were the Hawaiian Aloha shirts, the Detroit Tigers cap, the Ferraris zipping along the Hawaiian highways, and Magnum's carefree self-assurance. Because Thomas Magnum did not come across as too staged or fake, the character was able to strike a chord with viewers. He managed to be charming, obstinate, impulsive, and self-assured all at the same time. Viewers were quickly captivated by Tom Selleck's effortless performance. He managed to come off as friendly and credible, rather than sounding like meticulously produced music from Hollywood. Characteristics that served to differentiate Magnum PY from numerous other period television programs. One of the most iconic TV shows of the 80s, the series aired for 163 episodes over 8 seasons. Magnum PY was one of the most popular American one-hour dramas while it was at its peak. The role and Selleck's performance were so well received by reviewers and viewers that he was nominated for an Emmy in 1984 for Outstanding Lead Actor in a Drama Series. Tom Selleck ultimately became a big TV star after nearly 15 years of unsuccessful pilots, lesser TV appearances, and unclear possibilities. The achievement, however, was not without considerable unseen pressure. The reality of production was significantly more hard, notwithstanding Magnum PY's portrayal of sunlight, beaches, and effortless charm. Production schedules were jam-packed, with actors frequently enduring physically demanding long days of shooting in oppressive temperatures. In the long run, Selleck was under a lot of pressure to keep up the enthusiasm and reliability required of a starring part on network television. Discipline and endurance, rather than enthusiasm, were the mainstays of his practice by the late 1980s. Another major shift occurred in his life around the same time. He first crossed paths with his future wife, Jilly Mack, in 1983. They started dating just when Selleck was starting to question his priorities beyond his career. He had spent years trying to establish himself in Hollywood, but he was eventually pulled to a more private life where he could focus on his family and find some equilibrium away from the limelight. When Selleck made a career-altering decision in 1988, that change took on added significance. He decided to leave the Magnum P1 series while it was at its most popular. Keeping the show on air was still something the network was considering. The financial incentives were enormous, and the ratings remained strong. Nonetheless, the decision was quite personal, as Selleck would later clarify. He was mentally and physically drained from years of relentless production schedules and decided he no longer wanted his life to revolve around television and studio commitments. Making that decision was not simple. Hollywood performers run the danger of losing their musical momentum when they depart from hit movies while they're at the top of their game. The choice, however, was reflective of something that had always played a significant role in Selleck's life. Having a stable income and a life outside of fame are more important than having a successful career, according to this view. Despite this, Selleck persisted in advance. He shown during his Magnum years that he could be successful in fields unrelated to the series. He became the highest-grossing American film star in 1987 with his roles in the comedy 3 Men and a Baby, which also starred Ted Danson and Steve Guttenberg. Audiences in 1987 saw a different side of him in that picture, one that was warmer, lighter, and funnier than the image many identified with Magnum P.I. The film also showcased a wider variety of his acting abilities,